the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
And so obviously Gundy's done a hell of a job, but it'll be interesting to see this year.
Absolutely. Next up, buy or sell. BYU's Kilane Sitake is a sneaky good bet for first coach fired in the Big 12 this season, Matt Green.
So I'm going to sell this one as well. I mean, I guess I don't know how to interpret the Chase Thomas sneaky hot seat. I think his seat is hot. I don't know about the pressure necessarily at BYU. I feel like he's done a pretty good job in recent years. I just feel like Dave Aranda feels like a lot hotter. Like obviously they did win that Big 12 championship we were just talking about versus Oklahoma State a couple years ago. But man, 12-2 that year, and then 11-23 his other 3 years combined. It's been real bad. And maybe Aranda, he's still like a big name in the sport, I feel like. So you're Baylor, maybe you give him a little more time. I don't know. I tend to think the expectations are higher at Baylor than BYU. And maybe that's why Aranda's seat is a little hotter. So yeah, Sitake's right there, but I would take Dave Aranda to get fired first.
That's fair. I think it's a huge year for both programs. And both coaches need good years to really cool the seats. And I'm talking like 8-4 plus to cool the seats. I don't think 7-5 might do it for some of these jobs. Maybe more for Sitake at BYU. But you talk about like this is a program that's won a national championship, Matt Green. This is a program that has put a lot of NFL quarterbacks out there. I mean, this is a good program. Like Lavelle Edwards was dominant in the 80s back with BYU. And we've seen Zach Wilson not too long ago. You've seen BYU really succeed as an independent, Mountain West, this and the other. They've won a bunch of conferences wherever they've been in. Like BYU is a good program. They take basketball very seriously as well. I think the Big 12 move is hard. And that was hard last year, especially with Texas and Oklahoma being in the conference as well. But I don't know. I think the expectations there are still pretty high. And now Utah, your rivals coming into the conference. What does that look like if Utah comes in and guns a-blazing? Like, I think that's going to factor in a little bit. Like, what if Utah comes in year one and wins the Big 12? If you're BYU, you're like, why can't we should be at the same level as Utah. Or like, there's no reason that they have this much of an edge against us if we're 7-5 and they go 10-2, 11-1 or something of that nature. But BYU, 5-7 in year one of the Big 12, 8-5 in 2022. It's going the wrong way here a little bit for Sitake in the Big 12. Their over-under is 4.5, so there's not a lot of Vegas optimism right now in Provo for the Cougars. But they've won. I mean, it's so weird. And like, so they were 29-9 their last 3 years as independents. The thing I wrote down in my notes here that I was thinking about with Boise State getting Malachi Nelson from USC, and we'll see how he does for the Broncos. But they needed that because Jake Retzlaff, who's back, and then Jerry Bohannon, who's bounced around South. Speaking of Baylor, at Baylor and South Florida, I don't think he's the answer there, especially in a make or break year. Retzlaff, that is, completed 50.4% of his passes, 3 TDs, 3 picks. It wasn't good, and I'm not optimistic that they're going to be good again at quarterback. And it's just so important in this conference and just in college football as a whole now that I was surprised they didn't take I don't know the situation there, but to me they needed to take a Malachi Nelson swing from one of these P5 guys, P4 now, who are looking for another spot, another landing spot, this, that, and the other, and bring them in and really right the ship here. Because I just don't like their options in a gigantic year. Keaton Slovis obviously did not work out for them last year as well. So I don't know. They allowed 30 plus points 8 times last year. Sitake's a defensive guy. The defense has got to be better than what we saw last year. They return a lot of receivers. That's huge. But they were 97th last year, Matt Green, in 10 plus yard plays in the country. Not good. They were 70th in FEI. They were 99th in yards per play. There's not a lot of good all across the board for BYU. I just think there's so many things trending against this working out for Sitake in the next year or two that I don't know. I just think there's going to be a a change sooner around later, because I just don't think this is going to be a good team again this year. So I think they're going to be worse than Baylor. So I'm going to say bye for BYU and Sitake. This maybe being it, and maybe the first coach fired in the Big 12.
Calling for this man's job. One losing season since 2017, and calling for this guy's job. So I got a trivia question for you here, sir. I bet you didn't know that this is now the 6th conference that Utah and BYU have played in together. And the first time they played in the same conference since 2010, when they were in the Mountain West. How many of the 6 conferences that BYU and Utah have played in can you name?
The WAC.
Okay,
Mountain
we got
West.
1. 2. Obviously, I'm giving you the Big 12. That's going to be 3.
Yeah.
This is where it gets tough, sir.
There was another kind of mountain conference. Are we talking about that? Is there another like a weird mountain conference? I feel like there was another.
There is a weird mountain conference. There's maybe multiple weird mountain
but it doesn't
conferences.
exist. What is it?
Right, I'll give
what
you,
is it?
give you 3 more seconds.
Just go. What was the other one?
All right. In 1962, they both joined the WAC. From 1948 to 1961, they were in the Skyline Conference.
Never would have guessed that.
From 1938 to 1947, they were in the Mountain States Athletic Conference. Obviously, the MSAC. We all remember the MSAC. And then from 1922 to 1927, they were both in the Rocky Mountain Conference. So,
Rocky Mountain Conference.
Little trivia for you there, sir. And this is also the 99th year of the 100th year, I should say, of BYU football this year. So,
and Tennessee was supposed to be there. I'm very annoyed. Tennessee was supposed to be in Provo last year, and we had to play Virginia instead in Nashville. That would have been fun. That would have been a fun game to see Tennessee under the lights in Provo. Beautiful stadium. BYU is one of those other ones I have a soft spot for. I want them to be good too. Zach Wilson, obviously, I was a big Zach Wilson guy. I don't know. I think they have a sneaky amount. You what?
I'd be a little torn on that because I feel like a big-time Power 5 school just shouldn't be playing at BYU. I guess now they're in the Big 12. They're one of the P4 now. But also Provo, that's like a bucket list stadium. Like I definitely want to see a game in that stadium at some point.
Next up here, buy or sell. This is going to be a fun one because I think people are really overlooking I think they're really diving into the TBS Dinner and a Movie special from our young days with Seneca Wallace making plays.
TBS Dinner and a Movie.
That's what people are
please explain, sir.
They just have a weird positive association with Iowa State, and people talk themselves into Iowa State a lot. There's a lot of folks who are like Iowa State, like this. They're easy to root for program.
Nicely done,
buy
nephew. The Chase Thomas podcast. Hell yeah.